Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual on Firstpost. We begin with the latest from the Israel-Hamas war. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned Lebanon. He said that Beirut would be left devastated like Gaza if Lebanon-based Hezbollah started a war. Netanyahu said that during a visit to Israeli troops at the border with Lebanon. Earlier in the day, a guided missile attack from Lebanon killed 60-year-old farmer in northern Israel. Israel and Hezbollah have been routinely exchanging fires at their border ever since the Israel-Hamas war broke out. A media investigation has found that journalist Issam Abdallah was killed by an Israeli tank crew in Lebanon on October 13th. The Israeli army reportedly fired 2 shells in quick succession while journalists were filming cross-border shelling. The shelling wounded 6 other reporters in the area. The safety of journalists covering the war has emerged as a pressing concern. Reports say more than 60 journalists have been killed since October 7. British Defence Secretary Grant Shapps met with his Israeli counterpart Yoav Gallant. Shapps was in Tel Aviv for a trip aimed at boosting aid to Gaza. The British Defence Secretary pushed for humanitarian aid to be delivered faster. After the meeting, Gallant and Shapps took part in the first candlelighting ceremony of the Jewish holiday Hanukkah. Russian President Vladimir Putin hosted his Iranian counterpart Ebrahim Raisi in Moscow. The war in Gaza remained in focus during the talks between the two leaders. Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi called the situation in Gaza a genocide. Raisi said, and I quote, "What is happening in Palestine and Gaza is of course genocide and a crime against humanity." Putin greeted Raisi in the Kremlin a day after visiting the UAE and Saudi Arabia. On to other top stories now. Russia and Ukraine both have claimed successfully repelling each other's offensives in multiple directions. Russia also claimed carrying out strikes on Ukraine's combat units, equipment and command posts deployed in the Donetsk region. Meanwhile, Ukraine said it had conducted strikes on areas where Russian military personnel, weapons and equipment were concentrated. Russia's upper house of parliament voted to set the date for Russia's presidential election yesterday. The Federation Council unanimously agreed to hold elections on March 17, 2024. For the first time, residents parts of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions of Ukraine annexed by Russia would take part in the vote. Meanwhile, a 14-year-old girl shot a fellow pupil dead and wounded 5 other children in Russia. That was before she shot and killed herself. Police say she brought a pump-action shotgun to school using which she fired at her classmates. Investigators were looking to establish the motive of the attack. Britain's Foreign Secretary David Cameron met with US State Secretary Antony Blinken. This was Cameron's first visit to the United States since becoming Foreign Secretary. The two officials said they discussed the US-UK Indian Ocean Air Base at Diego Garcia. The airbase is on British Indian Ocean territory in the Chagos Islands. In 2019, a vote in the UN General Assembly said it should be returned to Mauritius. However, Blinken said Washington recognized British sovereignty there. Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson faced second day of questioning over UK's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Johnson accepted that he would have done things differently. On Wednesday, Johnson gave his most explicit apology for his handling of the coronavirus crisis. He admitted to vastly underestimating the virus. Britain was one of the worst affected during the 2019 coronavirus pandemic. Greece and Turkey have agreed to reboot their relations. Turkish President Erdogan met with Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis in a landmark visit. The long-time sparring partners agreed to focus on pursuing good neighborly relations. They also agreed on keeping channels of communication open, boosting trade volumes and working on issues which have kept them apart. Denmark's parliament passed a bill on Thursday making it illegal to burn copies of the Quran in public places. This comes after protests in Muslim nations over the desecration of Islam's holy book. Denmark and Sweden experienced a series of public protests this year. Anti-Islam activists burnt or damaged copies of the Quran. This sparked tensions with Muslims and triggered demands that the Nordic government ban the practice. US President Joe Biden's son Hunter Biden has been hit with new criminal charges. The Department of Justice charged Hunter Biden, accusing him of failing to pay $1.4 million in taxes while spending millions of dollars on a lavish lifestyle. Earlier, Hunter Biden was hit with 3 felony and 6 misdemeanor tax offenses. He faces up to 17 years in prison if convicted. A US judge issued a temporary restraining order allowing a woman to get an abortion. This was after she argued in her lawsuit that her fetus was diagnosed with a genetic abnormality. This would either result in a miscarriage or death of the infant soon after birth. Moreover, the childbirth would also put the mother at considerable risk. The woman's lawyer said this is the first such case since the US Supreme Court last year allowed states to ban abortion. US officials have provided an update on Thursday's shooting at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas campus. The police identified the suspect as 67-year-old Anthony James Polito. Officers added that Polito was a financially struggling academic who was denied employment by several higher education institutions. However, the motive for the shooting rampage is still not known. In climate news, China hosted a side event during the COP28 climate change conference in Dubai, focusing on solutions for ocean-negative carbon emissions. The talks revolved around oceans' role in absorbing and storing carbons. The event aimed to explore proactive approaches to mitigate the climate crisis by utilizing the ocean's carbon absorption capacity. Speaking at the COP28 summit, IMF had suggested that trillions of dollars used to subsidize fossil fuel production could generate the funds needed to address climate crisis. She explained that the potential unpopularity of new carbon taxes has prevented governments from explicitly pricing carbon. The IMF estimates that subsidies of $5.9 trillion were provided to the sector globally in 2020. A group of climate activists were arrested during a climate protest in Paris, demanding increased government spending on thermal renovation of buildings. The group engaged in civil disobedience by blocking a bridge in the city. Their protest aimed to highlight the French government's inaction on environmental issues. According to Australian coral scientists, the impact of climate change on coral reefs has entered uncharted territory. Data indicates that extreme marine heat waves in 2023 could be a precursor to mass bleaching across the Indo-Pacific Ocean in the next 2 years. Scientists warned, saying that the record-breaking land and sea temperatures may lead to unprecedented mass coral bleaching and mortality in 2024. Heavy rain caused floods in Mahé, the main island in East African nation Seychelles. The flood led to the destruction of homes, roads and displaced thousands of residents. According to reports, 3 people died after several homes were flattened. A blast at an explosive store in the city caused additional damage. Seychelles' president declared a state of emergency. Pakistan's Lahore city has been grappling with a severe air pollution crisis for weeks now. This has led to a surge in pediatric patients seeking treatment for respiratory issues. Health officials estimate a 50% increase in pediatric cases due to deteriorating air quality last month. On to business and tech news. European Union countries and lawmakers were locked in tense discussions for 22 hours on Wednesday and Thursday over rules to govern artificial intelligence in the bloc. No consensus has been reached and talks will resume again today. Italy's communication watchdog has approved new rules for video sharing platforms. This will allow it to order the platforms to remove whatever it deems harmful content. This is to protect minors and consumers in the country. New rules will take effect from January 2024. This will potentially affect services such as Google's YouTube, TikTok and Meta's Instagram. More than 10 million people signed up for social media platform X in December, that is according to the firm's CEO Linda Yaccarino. However, there is no clarity on what the numbers say about Elon Musk-owned firm's performance. That is because X does not regularly release user data. This comes as the company is threatened by an exodus of advertisers from its platform. X, formerly known as Twitter, risks losing as much as $75 million in advertising revenue by the end of the year. Paul Vogel, the chief financial officer of Spotify, will step down from his role next year. Vogel steps down after an 8-year-long stint at the music streaming firm. His departure follows a rough week at the company. Spotify has said it would lay off around 1,500 employees in its third round of layoffs this year. Binance has withdrawn an application for an Abu Dhabi license. The Binance unit, called BV Investment Management, has pulled the application with Abu Dhabi's financial regulator. It had filed the application a year ago. The move is the latest sign that the crypto giant exchange is reassessing its global structure as regulatory pressures mount. McDonald's is testing a smaller format concept store called Cosmex. The fast food giant launched their first outlet in the US state of Illinois as part of a limited test run. The menu features cold beverages like flavored iced teas and slushes, as well as familiar McDonald's items like the McMuffin. McDonald's aims to open about 10 such pilot stores by the end of 2024. French car maker Renault is planning to cut production costs per vehicle. The automaker said that cuts would come between now and 2027. It aims to reduce costs for internal combustion engines by 30% and by half for electric vehicles. Renault further said the cost cuts would make the firm more agile and competitive. French drug maker Sanofi has said that it has 12 drugs currently in development. This includes 9 medicines and vaccines. The company says these could fetch potential sales of about $2 to $5 billion. Sanofi's update comes just over a month since its stock plunged 15%. Investors were concerned after its CEO unexpectedly abandoned sales targets for 2025. Australia says it has signed a contract with South Korea's Hanwha Aerospace. This is to receive 129 Redback infantry vehicles by 2028. The defense contract is worth $2.4 billion. Australia says that the vehicles would enormously improve the capability of the country's defense force. Australia's Woodside Energy and Santos are in preliminary talks to create a $52 billion global oil and gas giant. If the deal goes ahead, it will create the biggest liquefied natural gas producer in Australia. It would also be the country's largest corporate deal in several years. Let's get you the latest from the world of sports, and we begin with updates from the Premier League. Everton struck 3 times in final 11 minutes, leaving Newcastle stunned at the Goodison Park. The 3-0 win brings Everton out of the Premier League relegation zone despite a 10-point deduction. It has lifted Everton 1 point clear of the bottom 3, and they would be in the top half but for the points penalty. Tottenham slipped to a 4 defeat in 5 matches, going down 2-1 to West Ham after throwing away the lead yet again. Early season Premier League pace setters Tottenham won 8 of their first 10 games to top the table, but their momentum has slowed dramatically in recent weeks. Now they find themselves 9 points behind leaders and bitter London rivals Arsenal. There's more from football. France's World Cup winner Paul Pogba reportedly is facing the possibility of a lengthy ban after Italy's anti-doping tribunal called for a 4-year suspension of the Juventus midfielder. Pogba was provisionally suspended in September after he tested positive for testosterone. A massive riot erupted in Brazil's Santos after the local team was relegated following a 2-1 defeat against Fortaleza. Riot police fired tear gas at Santos supporters as rioters hurled objects at officers. Pele's former club Santos were relegated for the first time in their 111-year history. On to tennis now. Rafael Nadal says he could not confirm whether 2024 would be his final season before retirement. Nadal said it makes no sense to set a deadline for the end of his career. After nearly a year-long injury absence, the 22-time Grand Slam champion will make his return at the Australian Open warm-up event in Brisbane next month. A notable absence from the Australian Open's main draw was Nick Kyrgios. The 2022 Wimbledon finalist's absence comes as a blow for the organisers. Kyrgios had an injury-blighted 2023. Last month he said the stars would need to align for him to be fit for the next month's Grand Slam. And despite the off-season, there's a lot brewing in the Formula One racing world. In the latest, motorsports governing body, the FIA, has announced that it has ended a short-lived investigation into a potential conflict of interest believed to center on Toto Wolff, the Mercedes boss, and his wife Susie Wolff, the managing director of F1 Academy. The probe was launched after allegations of information of confidential nature being passed on to an F1 team principal from a member of the Formula One management personnel. The Indiana Pacers have fired into the title match of the inaugural NBA in-season tournament. Halliburton's 27-point led the Pacers to a 128-119 win over the Milwaukee Bucks. Halliburton added 15 assists without a turnover, and Miles Turner scored 26 points and pulled down 10 rebounds as the Pacers remained unbeaten in the tournament. Reigning Masters champion Jon Rahm confirmed that he is joining LIV Golf in a deal reportedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars, sealing a stunning coup for the Saudi Arabia-backed circuit. Rahm announced his decision to leave the PGA Tour in an interview. The two-time major winner becomes arguably the best star to join LIV, the upstart circuit whose emergence has upended the golfing world over the past 2 years. A searing pace took Spain to a 4-1 victory against India in a pool match of the FIH Junior Men's Hockey World Cup. Spain played a close-knit game where India conceded a goal in the very first minute of the contest. India tried rotating midfielders following the jolt but were unable to stop the sturdy Spaniards. Spain now lead Pool C with 6 points from 2 wins. On to entertainment news now. Succession actor Alan Ruck is facing a lawsuit from a man who claims Ruck collided with his car on October 31st. The complaint alleges negligence and seeks unspecified damages for a crash in Hollywood City. The driver claims Ruck abruptly accelerated and collided with his car. The driver was taken to a hospital due to severity of his injuries. Actor Cillian Murphy, known for his role as Thomas Shelby in TV series Peaky Blinders, hinted at the possibility of a Peaky Blinders film. In an interview, he expressed openness to the idea of continuing the narrative on the big screen if there's more story to tell. The actor also highlighted the challenges of making transition from television to a feature-length film. Author George R.R. Martin calls The House of the Dragon Season 2 dark and powerful in his new blog post. The writer was in London where he got a sneak peek into the first 2 episodes of the upcoming series. Martin praised the rough cuts, describing them as emotional and aligned with his preferences for dramatic storytelling. George R.R. Martin wrote the novel, which was adapted into Game of Thrones and its prequel series House of the Dragon. The top 20 finalists for the Visual Effects Oscar 2024 have been announced. According to reports, films like Greta Gerwig's Barbie and Marvel's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse are some of those on the list. After the next round of voting, a final list of 10 films will be revealed on December 21st. The 96th Oscars will be held on March 10, 2024. A new interactive exhibition, Harry Potter Vision of Magic, is premiered in Germany's Cologne city. Developed by Warner Brothers, the exhibition guides visitors through iconic locations in the Harry Potter universe. Visitors are equipped with interactive magic wands, allowing them to engage with the exhibition's technology like transforming walls. Actor Rachel Zegler, starring as Snow White in Disney's upcoming live-action film, opened up about working with CGI characters, including the dwarfs. In an interview, she admitted feeling nervous initially, considering the iconic nature of the show. Zegler said she spent much of her days singing alone on the set for sequences as the dwarfs are CGI. Actor Jennifer Lopez is set to star in a film adaptation of the 1993 Broadway musical Kiss of the Spider-Woman. She will play the character of a fancy woman named Aurora. The story is set in an Argentinian prison. According to reports, the filming will start from April next year in New Jersey. Actor Jonathan Majors' ex-girlfriend Grace Jabbari continued her testimony for the third consecutive day in court. The defense suggested that Jabbari's decision of going to a nightclub after the alleged assault indicated less serious injuries. Jabbari explained that she was filled with adrenaline and only felt the pain next morning. She described it as feeling like she had been hit by a bus. Majors is accused of assaulting Jabbari in a car. Rapper 50 Cent says his production company will release a documentary about Sean Combs and the sexual assault allegations against him. He said the proceeds from the documentary will go to victims of sexual assault. Combs has been accused of alleged sexual assault by 4 women since November this year. The rapper has, however, dismissed the claims. Members RM, Jimin, V, Jungkook from the K-pop band BTS will soon enlist in military service. The members took to social media urging their fans not to go to the army bases on their enlistment day. This is to avoid causing inconvenience to other soldiers and their parents. They emphasized their desire to minimize disruptions for everyone involved.